Welcome, everybody, to the next edition, episode 7. We've done 7 of these of Grader's Notes. Coming at you live. We're about to jump in a time machine tonight. To the next edition. Back to the 1990s, the era of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Saved by the Bell, Screech.
Oh, Screech.
My childhood sweetheart, Kelly Kapowski. The whole thing. We're going back to the 90s. And I'm traveling back to the 90s with none other than the first member of Grader's Notes panel, to my left, on my screen anyway, Gabe, Mr. Miracle Comics. What's up, my brother?
Hey, everybody. How you doing? I'm doing well. Looking forward to this one. Yeah, let's take a look at the New Warriors. I'll just leave it there.
Yeah, we're ready for Mr. Miracle to break this book over its knee. It's like Bane did Batman.
You guys are like setting me up with this book, man. You guys are like,
Would we do something like that, Dave?
you guys are just waiting for it. I'm like, oh man.
To his left, none other than the commissioner of the contest, one of the most knowledgeable guys in the game, owner of a Hulk 181, which I just recently discovered. Mr. Metarog, what's up, my brother?
Oh, I'm doing great, man. For a senior citizen to be, I am doing excellent. I feel like, in my 30s. I'm rare to go. I feel like a new warrior today.
He's not a senior citizen. But anyway, my boy to his left, the man who hits the highways on 2 wheels, who reviews the horror movies better than anyone else, the Lizard King. Gino,
there's my Morrison reference.
What's up, my man?
Not much, just enjoying a hot cup of Yorkshire tea for all of my friends across the pond there. I thought I'd throw that out there for you. Good evening, everyone. Glad you could join us for this auspicious occasion. Once again, we're going to be reviewing, as he said, New Warriors #1. This one has special meaning in my heart, seeing as I bought this one off the newsstand, which is basically all the comics I have still nowadays. But yeah, so I'm pretty stoked to get started, and I'm really stoked to see Mr. Miracle eviscerate this one. So anyway, please, host with the most, continue.
Don't mind if I do. Before we get into, this rumble, brother, this dissection of the comic, let me show the chat a little love. We got first in the door, first in the Royal Rumble, Master Don Comics, my boy Don. Good to see you, sir. Caleb the Comic Smurf in the house. We also have JPL Flash Comics and Geekdom. My man, good to see you, sir. And let's not forget Dr. Biggie Shack Comics in the house. You sometimes see him in the chat with the Melody Biggie Shack tag. If you're not subbed up to this second Dr. Biggie Shack Comics channel, go ahead and give it a sub, because you never know if he's going to sneak attack you with a video on that channel. My man. And if you didn't see his AOK video that he posted like an hour or two ago, check it out. It was a good one. I'm happy for you, brother. And a YouTube chat wouldn't be complete without YouTube is 90, MF Comics. My brother, also in the house. Good to see you. And a regular attendant of the Grader's Notes program. My boy Comic Collector is also in the house. Good to see you. Ooh, as well as my new friend, Lady Fantastic's in the house. Yo, the Lady Fantastic. Sub her up too, guys. She's cool. And
She is.
last but not least, man, honestly, one of the chat all-stars, comment all-stars, good member of the community, one of the coolest dudes around with a great collection, Unruly Simeon. Round of applause to Unruly Simeon. That's my guy.
Hey, I got to clap any guy that sends me all those Garth Ennis freaking Punisher runs. So
That's right. I remember that. He's a good egg, man. Props to you, Unruly Simeon.
Oh, I like Unruly, man. He comments on my videos all the time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and it's no bargain bin. You don't get bargain bin comments from Unruly. They're pretty they're good contributions to the chat thread. So you're appreciated, man. I'm a big Unruly Simeon fan. And last brother in the door. Well, they keep popping in, so I can't say that. Mr. Gretzky and Bake the Snake. My guys, good to see you. Okay. The chat has been accounted for. Attendance has been taken. And this is the book. We haven't, you got a little sneak peek, but this is the one, guys. The New Warriors, #1. Is it 1990?
Yep.
1990.
1990 on the nose.
They rang in the new decade.
I was a freshman in high school.
I won't tell you what I was.
All right. Yeah, pretty, this should be a fun dive through this book. I'm a big New Warriors guy, big Night Thrasher fan and all that, but this was kind of fun for me because I'm a New Warriors fan from way back, reading as a kid, so I hadn't, since I revisited comics and started reading again as an adult, I haven't picked up a New Warriors comic. So I was curious to see how it held up, and you guys are about to find out how it did. So I would say, first up, I'm just going to kind of go with this order that I see to my left on my screen. We usually start with the cover, and I'm going to let my boy Dave, Mr. Miracle, start off with his thoughts and his grade on the cover. And what up, Gray Man? And what up, Runs in the Family? Good to see you guys join us.
All right. Yeah. Hi to everybody in the chat. See, that's how you do it, Kenny. Just blanket them. All right. So the cover of New Warriors. And it's... Okay, so we know the artist here is Mark Bagley. But this is like really early in his career. But man, this is like a total atypical cover. Like, I mean, this cover, I've seen this cover, X-Men, Giant Size X-Men #1, Avengers #1, Teen Titans #1. Like, it's just, I would have liked to have seen anything of it, like, a little better. It is kind of that classic throwback to that new team, everybody bursting out of the cover or coming out of the cover or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. Like I like Bagley's art. I know, like I said, it was really in the beginning of what he was doing, so it's a little rougher. And I really, think Al Williamson, even here on the cover, just went way too over black with the inks. Like every single ink on here has to be super black. I don't understand like why. Like he almost look at Nova. He almost looks like he has a black costume on. It's so inked out, right? And he's supposed to be bright red. And then, yeah, like, I mean, I guess he's kind of telling everybody, yeah, I cover swipe this from all this other stuff because he's got like other #1s that have this very same cover with different characters on it and stuff. So it's not bad in the sense that it's what we always see with a #1. We've seen it since the 60s, right? Again and again. I would have liked to have seen him push something a little bit more if he's trying to, start off a new team in the middle of the 90s when comic books were, people were just pumping out tons and tons of different issues and stuff. Yeah, I would have liked to seen him do a little bit more of something that would grab your eye to this cover other than being just a #1. Like probably a lot of people bought this as like, oh, that's a #1. I'll just pick it up and see what it's like, kind of thing, right? A lot of people just buy #1s all the time. But yeah, I'm not really impressed with the cover. I'm not really hating on it. Like, I know you guys are all hoping I would hate it, but I didn't. It's not the worst. There is another second print gold cover. I think the gold cover kind of actually looks a little better to me than the red cover. Again, they like Nova is getting lost, and Night Thrasher kind of gets lost. What's that?
There you go.
Oh, there's the gold cover. Yeah, so I think like you could see they kind of pop out of there if you're looking at that gold cover when Metarog comes. A little bit more than this. I'm not in love with it. I'm not hating on it, so I'm just gonna give it right down the middle of the road. 2.5 on the cover. Yeah, that's the best I'm gonna do.
2.5 from the mighty Mr. Miracle
Mm.
made some interesting points. We have, the next batter up, who's presenting the second print gold cover that Dave mentioned. Mr. Metarog, what say you on this cover, man?
Well, thank you, Kenny. Well, Mr. Miracle has some good points, but I disagree on a few others, right? It's not the most original concept for a cover, but I'm a sucker for these breaking the fourth wall, in your face, coming towards you. Hey, this is a new team, and we're gonna put it out here. We're gonna put it in a big poster. We're gonna put it in your face. I'm a sucker for those kind of covers. You know what I mean? Giant Size X-Men #1 is another, a commensurate type of cover when they're all out coming, bursting out. I like that because it tells you there's something new coming. So it's almost like an announcement cover. So in that sense, I do like that. I like the figures. I like the size of them. I like how you have the flying superheroes on the top and the more ground level ones on the bottom. Very good positioning. Dave's got some good points though. Too dark here in the coloring and the inks. It especially with the red background, which I'm putting here. He's right. You kind of get the Nova totally gets lost. By the way, why did they put Kid Nova on there? I mean, this is Richard Rider Nova, but anyway, that's something for later on. I like that the leader, Night Thrasher, is front and center and the biggest figure coming right towards you. It shows that he has more power, more of a presence here, since he is the one who is going to be taking this team and forming them. And again, I like the homage to all the other #1 covers: Giant Size X-Men #1, Fantastic Four #1, even X Factor #1, West Coast Avengers #1, New Mutants #1. All that kind of stuff to me is eye-catching. I hate the UPC, and I'm not going to rant on that again because I've done that a million times. I wish those things would go away on covers, right? So I don't like that. But overall, I think it's well done. I think Bagley did. I'm a big fan. I think Geis is actually the one who inked this, but Bagley did a good job on these figures. I really like that. Again, if it wasn't for the darkness and that red kind of, sort of enveloping a lot of the figures, I would give this a higher grade. But as it is, I give this 8.4.
We got a 4. We got a solid grade on it from Metarog, also with some nice observations. A nice hearty welcome to Perry Comics, who popped into the chat, as did Rod the Rican. And I did see that you bought a new hat today on Instagram, Rod. Looking sharp, my brother. Man, next up in the batter's box, we know he's already said he's a mark for the New Warriors, as am I. So let's see what Genome has to say about the cover of New Warriors #1.
Uh-oh.
Oh, there we go. Sorry, I had a little technical issue there. The button does not like pressing. So what do I think about the cover of New Warriors #1? Well, I'll start off by saying this. I hate the red cover, and I like the gold variant. It just works so much better with the gold, and it has a very regal appearance. If we Americans can be said to have anything regal, this would be it right here. It's gold. It's beautiful. It helps distract a little bit from some pretty run-of-the-mill art. I will say I do like a lot of work went into the faces, even though they're kind of small, and there's actually even shading and everything on the face, which is kind of nice. But I mean, other than that, and of course, they're tearing out of the breaking the fourth wall sort of again, whatever, out of the cover. It's a pretty good action shot. Bagley has a pretty good sense of proportion when it comes to things like this, and so he doesn't taper, like, for instance, the feet off into like little freaking needles or anything. He keeps them pretty close to how they'd be because it's only a body length apart, so it's not gonna be a lot of tapering. So it's pretty good there. It doesn't really tell you what's inside other than who's there. I don't like how they named them. I think they just did that because no one would know who these people are, but they're not supposed to. I think 2 of these characters have been around before this book, maybe 3 at most, outside of a cameo. So that's kind of goofy putting the names out there. Maybe that's just trying to be nostalgic again, but I don't really care for that at all. I think the key to number one, especially with new teams, is to keep it mysterious on the cover. Give them something they want to open and find out about. And it's like if you already got everyone's name on there, it takes away a little bit of the mystery. That's just a nitpick. I got no problem with the art. I still would like a regular background better than them tearing out the books and all. I don't. It doesn't really do much for me. But I mean, the colors are good. Yeah, the blacked out inks is a little annoying. It takes away all definition out of Night Thrasher and Nova, especially. He looks like a like someone in a Popeyes commercial with a color scheme they threw on the cover here. It doesn't match up too well with what's going on. So I guess he's what, Kid Nova Sanders or whatever. But anyway, it's okay. Like I said, it's nothing special. The gold does help you walk by and grab it, and of course, seeing the number one might kind of tempt you in, but it's not a cover I would like look twice at if I was just walking by casually, not looking to speculate or anything. So while it's solid, and Bagley, everything he does is pretty solid for the most part. I'm just gonna give it a middle of the road. Great, actually. On the nostalgia side, I'm gonna go ahead and give it a 3. Just kind of not awful, not stupendous, just good. And I won't use my word yet, but we'll use it later. Yeah, 3.
yeah. All right, we got, he wasn't totally titillated by the cover, but it did the job. I see where Genome's coming from, but if I may tell you what I think about this cover, I would say, first I'll address what they would like, the theme of it and the layout of it first before I address the art much, right? So as far as I really dig the layout and the overall concept of the cover. Is it a little like cliche of them busting through the page? Maybe, but you got to remember, I think the New Warriors isn't meant to be a real edgy book necessarily. It's meant to be a fun book. So I'm cool with it doing the classic blasting through the page. I feel like it almost makes sense because one theme of the New Warriors is they were always like the junior team to all the big boy teams. So I think it's kind of cool to see the junior team, introduced the way a lot of the classic teams did. And one thing that I think is different is like Giant Size X-Men, for example. You see the new team busting through, but you had the old team standing above, like, oh no, who are these guys? But this is it's just a pile of old issues, like classic issues, and they're popping that. So it's kind of fun that you can go back and see what comics are here in the background. I thought that was original. I can't remember another. I'm not aware of one that also did that, where there's like a bunch of old issues in the background and they're blasting through that. So I thought that was cool. Them putting Heroes for the 90s at the top is awesome, especially now that we're looking at it like so many years later. I think it's pretty cool that it says Heroes for the 90s on it. So I'm into that. And the logo is dope. I've always loved the New Warriors title logo. Good stuff. The layout of the characters is cool. Like Metarog said, you got your flying characters above. All the poses, spot on. The figures themselves and the drawings is lackluster to me. It's not the cleanest artwork Bagley has done. I think you're right. It's like early on in his run, so maybe he didn't really get that in that real groove like we did in probably some of the peak stuff of his career in that Spider-Man run. And the inks, man, the inks and the coloring are rough on this thing. I agree, man. Nova, you're totally right. You guys are both covered on that. I'm not too big on the figure drawing overall of Marvel Boy here. Yeah, some of the characters, they just don't look that clean. So the execution on the characters themselves, a little disappointing. I do prefer the gold one to this one, but I don't have it handy, and this was the first print, so I'll judge him on the first print. I agree. The gold should have been the first one out the gate, and the red probably should have been the reprint. But overall, I dig it. I think it does the job. I think all the characters look cool. I'm actually fine with the name introductions on it. I'm cool with that. Let the people know who you got in the book. I'm not too sour about that. So overall, I'm into it. It's not a home run, but it is a cool cover. And I also give it a 4.
Ooh.
Yeah,
What can I say? Great minds think alike, Kenny.
yeah,
What can I
man.
say?
It's a 4. It's fun. Uh, so, bang. The
You guys are
chat.
easy to please.
What do you say?
So you guys are easy to please. I definitely couldn't give this a 4.
You know, I just noticed that Namorita has quads like China. My gosh.
Yeah, she's squatted up, dude. Memories are
I
hard.
looked inside. It wasn't like that inside. So interesting.
Artistic license, Gino.
Yeah, man. So, boom. There you have it. The chat. Now is the time where we want the chat grade. So, all you guys, you've seen the cover, you've seen us run through it. I've seen a couple grades sprinkling in throughout. Your boy gave it a 4, maybe a little sprinkle of nostalgia because I love my boy Night Thrasher and Speedball. We had Mr. What'd you give it, Mr. Miracle? 3? Or was it a 2.5 actually, right?
He 2.5.
Yeah, 2.5.
I was being nice. Trying not to be.
Yeah, I think that the chat is probably on the wavelength of Miracle, which is all good, all fair play. I think I saw my buddy Lord Vasco pop into the chat earlier. Welcome to you, homie. And I'll get my little abacus out, man, so we can start rounding out this chat grade.
All righty. Let me know when you're
Very
ready.
good.
Okay, I'm good.
All right. We got Dr. Big Shat Comics coming in with a 4 out of 5. Mastodon, Don gave it a 4.
Hold on, I think you want to mulligan that. I think when he said 4 out of 5, he was in shock that I gave it a 4 out of 5.
I'm sorry.
I saw that he put a 2 in there earlier, so I wanna let him be.
Oh, I see. Yeah, he's reacting to you. Okay, so we'll see what he says later. Okay, so 4 for Don, 3 for Simeon, Tim Comic Collector 3.5, Biggie Shack 2, Chad 90MF gives it a 2, and Grayman 3, and James JPL Flash 3. Yep.
And by the way, everyone, while he's sitting there tabulating, make sure everyone is subbed up to each other. Make sure to smash that like button. Putting out good content here for. Make sure you take care of Comic Head pretty well. So.
Yep. Amen. Yeah, let's support those in the chat. If you have a channel there you don't recognize, hit them up, sub them up, and see what they're about. All right, Kenny, what's the verdict?
The verdict was a 3.5.
3.5. Okay.
3.5.
That's not bad. That's not bad.
It was definitely a split grade on that one, huh?
Yeah. Almost you one camp or another. Yeah.
Well, there you have it. We've addressed the cover. Next up, we're gonna open this baby up and see what's cooking in these. What's cooking in these 31 pages of New Warrior action. Let's. You know what we just were talking about art on the cover. Let's jump into the writing, the storyline first before we get into the artwork on the inside. So I say let's get into the writing, the story, what actually happened in this book, how did it go? Mr. Metarog, you're up, bud.
All right, thank you, Kenny. Let me just talk a little bit here about the writer, Fabian Nicieza. This is one of his first jobs, I do believe. He had some, bit parts in Marvel Age and some backups and things like that. So when I first picked this up, I was like, who, but as with anything, I judge everything based upon my, not just the initial experience, but when I go in depth into the story, right? And the story is fairly basic. You have a team that's being formed, the leader being a somewhat Machiavellian figure in Night Thrasher. And he does some pretty, what we would say underhanded or jerky things here. to form this team, including throwing somebody off a roof, and he's not sure whether they will die or not. Although I suspect that that's not actually the case. I don't think he's a murderer just like that. Although he is very, very unhinged. But that's going to be something for later on. And then as we go on, he has a plan to form a team. And actually, it doesn't quite work out because there are additional members that sort of show up as the story unfolds. And that is okay because, sometimes plans don't work, exactly the way you think. So I think that's kind of a nice little twist, that there are, X factors that you can't account for. That's the way real life goes, and a lot of the team, they do act somewhat juvenile. Nova is very disrespectful to Night Thrasher's guardians, for example. Night Thrasher himself is very impulsive and thinks he's all that, but he has a lot of motivation, kind of like Batman, but I won't spoil that, right? And then there's the introduction of the villain through a scientific sort of experiment where they're trying to essentially, it's more of a ecological rescue, and there's where they find Namorita, because although she is not a teen, she's actually an Atlantean, Submariner's cousin from way back in the 70s. And then they do introduce the villain, although it's not really the full-fledged villain, because he would have decimated this team. But this version of the villain, and yes, they handle him with some input from the leader. Again, fairly basic story, nothing incredibly out of this world, not too bad. I like how he puts the team in a position so that he knows that they are not the Avengers. The Avengers are macro, and this team is a much more micro, street level focused team. And that's in fact the reason that the team is together. So again, I'm not going to get too much nitpicky. I'm sure you guys are going to come up with other concepts. Overall, I thought it was, for his first job, not a terrible, somewhat basic, somewhat regular. I give him a little bit of a bump because of the way he characterizes some of the team members as youthful and inexperienced and, and angst-ridden. So I give the story a 3.
Story gets a 3 from Metarog, along with some cutting analysis. And I didn't even think about the writer, so that was cool to hear that this was the guy's first outing. Let's see, Gino, how do you think this? What did you say that writer's name was again? It sounded fancy.
Fabian Nicieza.
Fabian.
He's from Argentina.
Nicieza. How do you think he did? How do you think Mr. Nicieza?
It's like Mario.
Yeah. It's a me, Fabiana. How do you think? How do you think this dude did on his first? It's a dude, I presume, right?
Yes.
Okay. How do you think this Argentinian dude did on his first outing, Gino, with the story, with the writing?
Well, I gotta say he was serviceable. I'm just gonna get that out of the way right now.
Get out of the way, man.
Mine won't be too long because here's what I liked. I liked 2 things about this story: the first 2 pages, and I liked at the very end. This book actually had the chutzpah to call out the Avengers as jackasses. It actually paints them in a pretty negative light in this one. First, they dismiss Vance Astro, Marvel Boy. God, it's the stupidest name ever, Marvel Boy, whatever. Completely dismisses the guy to start the thing. And at the very end, they come in and basically hog all the limelight after the villain has been destroyed. And I know that's kind of the catalyst that brings the team together and just brings that camaraderie about them from a team of disparate personalities who came together very quickly and very easily, too. I think they could have made that, stretch that out a little bit longer. They all started getting along. Well, not easily, but I guess circumstances kind of forced them together somewhat. But like Firestar being recruited the way she was, just suddenly just joins his team. I mean, it seems, I know, just a little bit too knee jerk. You think she'd like to learn a little more about this guy who threatened to dox her basically before doxing was cool. So, other than that, I mean, the story it's cookie cutter. It is. It is. They kind of write the young ones. Only they write them as use, but I think they write him a little too young. Like they write Speedball. He sounds more like he's 8 or 9 than he does it like a teenager. Is he supposed to be 16? I think in this or something like that, 15 or 16. So I think they write him a little too young. And the other ones, they don't really have much to work with. You know what Namorita is, what she's a PETA member or a Greenpeace member, but we don't really know too much about her just from reading in there. There's no real personality other than she gets pretty snarky with Nova. You can tell they're going to have a back and forth throughout their entire run. So there's that unrequited tension right there. But yeah, I mean, the story is just, you know, I do kind of like the setup of it. It's kind of cool. It's like, you know, they're a leftover team and they just happen to be in the right place at the right time to fight this world threat. But I mean, like I said, other than the very intro, now that intro is freaking amazing. Page 1 and 2 is awesome. Well, you got Night Thrasher, you know, just hold them over the brink, and Ryder looks like he's a junkie or a hype now, or a speedball, if you will. And then he just drops him. I love that, man. He's like so like blasé. He's like thanks, and then he just drops him. That's cool, and it has a really cool panel where his eyes light up. That's one of the art and all that. But I just think that's good writing right there. Because that just kind of leads in from a bang. It's like, oh, who is this dude? You don't know if he's a good guy or a bad guy. Now, here, if he wasn't on the cover, you wouldn't know he's a good guy. You know, unfortunately, they kind of gave that away a little bit. But so, yeah, that's it. It was just kind of a generic, kind of like a little teeny bopper, almost like a Mickey Mouse Club, you know, kind of story in the center with some of the character traits. Other than Night Thrasher and maybe Nova a little bit, none of the other ones seem too adult. So, yeah, I wasn't blown away by the story. I'm just going to go ahead and give it a 2.
He gave it a 2. You heard it here first. He said this is some Mickey Mouse Club shit right here, guys. Interesting take there from Gino.
By the way, do yourself a favor, look at some pictures of Doreen, and I won't say anything else after that. But yeah, there you go. So
Doreen, what's that? Who's Doreen?
Well, she's on the original Musketeers.
Ah. Conquistadorks. Welcome, sir. Great name.
Great name. Yeah, fabulous.
All right, man. Here's the story. And just so the people know, because if you guys haven't read it, here's what goes down. Opens it up, like he said, it does open up with a bang. My boy Night Thrasher. Night Thrasher is written well throughout the whole thing. I like the way Night Thrasher rolls. This is the way he drafts Nova onto the team. He's holding him over a ledge, and he drops him. Just to like force him to activate his powers, you know? So he's like, boom. That dude's like, whoa, that's crazy. Who are you? He's like, I'm Night Thrasher. Come join the team. Okay. Then you get a little scene with Marvel Boy. I actually like the little intro to Marvel Boy here. Because he goes and he tries out for the Avengers. But he thinks he's just going to roll to the doorstep and like, hey, can I sign up? And Cap's like, no, dude, beat it, basically. Which was kind of funny. But then, boom, page 2. Look at so this is page 4 technically, but page 4, and 3 of the team members are already assembled pretty quickly, and that's a con of this book, or a negative, is man they throw this team together so quick and kind of randomly. They can let it breathe. Like I'm cool with team books where the whole team isn't together at the end of issue 1. It's fine. Let it. You got this thing this was a long run, so. You got plenty of issues to breathe, man. If the whole team doesn't really become a team until issue 2 or 3, that's fine. But that's not what they did here. They kind of rush you through it a little bit. Night Thrasher is kind of like a dark. He's very Batman-esque, you know. Metarog didn't want to spoil his connection to Batman, but I will. His parents were murdered. His parents were murdered, and he swears vengeance. You know, so he's got a very similar Batman origin, which is kind of why I like him, I think. And he masterminds the whole team getting put together, and he does it through pretty gangster ways, like he blackmails Firestar, or tries to dox her, like he said. Marvel Boy, the way he's like, how did you know I was trying to try out for the Avengers? He's like, did you see that hot dog cart vendor outside of Avengers Tower? He's like, yeah. Well, that's my guy, paying $50 a week to let me know who comes in and out of Avengers Tower. That was cool. That was good, right?
He's got informants, man.
Yeah, he doesn't play around. You know, Terax shows up. That's a con. Because Terax, former Herald of Galactus, mind you, just gets totally spanked by these jabronis. which was a little disappointing. What else I put in my notes? I like how they make Nova sound like a Queen's kid. He's kind of like, they kind of write his dialogue as slang, which is good because it's supposed to be kids, right? They do make the Avengers look like dickheads at the end, which was cool. But yeah, it just rushes through the team. It's awkward when they acquire some of the people along the way. It's pretty cookie cutter stuff. The battle, like I said, I'm kind of rolling my eyes during the battle because I'm like, you're fighting Terrax, right? So that was a little weird. So, with all that being said, Night Thrasher is the highlight, but they really just rushed through it too fast, which was disappointing. And I went with a 3 for the story. I think it's a little above average because of the Night Thrasher elements, but it's not a home run. They could have done a little better. Let it breathe is what I'd say.
So you think the wine needed to breathe a little bit?
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Night Thrasher is like fine cognac. You just got to let it sit out there in a big balloon glass and just evaporate.
That's right. And sometimes wine, gets better with age. Don't forget that, Mataron.
Why not just drink that turned to vinegar?
No. Well, per your opening comment. Next up, let's see if Dave's going to eviscerate this story and call it some jabroni Mickey Mouse Club. Is it Mickey Mouse Club or is it I don't know, better than that? What do you say, Dave?
Oh, the story. Oh, whose idea was it to read this one? That was your call on this issue, right, Kenny?
I did put it on the voting block. Yes.
Yeah, man. Don't think I won't fly to New England. And like, you would not have words if you recommend books like this to me. Man, the story is hard to read. Like it's a gathering issue. Like it's the first issue, and they're all gathering up these guys, and they're picking all these crazy little character teenage guys, and they're putting them all together in this big team, and they're all being stuff. And every time I read Teen Titans #1, I always get this weird oh, wait. No, I mean New Warriors #1. I just get that it was so fucking obviously trying to rip them off. All their characters are rip-off guys. Like everybody's like Night Thrasher. Night Thrasher has some good moments, but I've seen Batman do everything that he's done. He's the Marvel's answer to Batman, but
how dare you?
He's not. He's a very watered down version of Batman. The character, like the story, is such weird little non sequitur. Like, yeah, when Night Thrasher drops Richard Rider and he gets his powers back, everybody's like, "That's cool," and I'm like, "Yeah, okay, that one panel is kind of cool. That little element." I was like, "Oh, this might not be too bad," but then Richard Rider flies up and he's like, "Oh, you almost killed me. Hey, let's be teammates." No, that's not going to happen. Like, if anybody tries to kill me the first time we meet, it's going to be like friends off. Like, we're not hanging out. We're not going to join a team, right? So that didn't make sense to me. Then he goes around and gathers up all his little weirdos, right? That he's been tagging all this stuff. And he's like, "Hey, this is my real identity. Come to my secret cave and check out all my secret stuff. I know we just met. It's cool." What? Fuck off, Night Thrasher. As if you're like, you think Batman's gonna like meet some guy on the street and then take him down to the Batcave, tell him he's Bruce Wayne? No, right? That's just weird. That's just totally bad, weird writing. The choices of characters are terrible. Like anybody who likes Speedball, fuck, I hate that character. Speedball is the reason why I stopped collecting comics for a while. Like literally, I read that Speedball issue and I was like, "What the hell? That's it for me. I'm out." If they're gonna put out crap characters like this in the '90s, I'll pick this. I'll start collecting again in 2000s, right? Because it wasn't. And this story is a perfect example of how they take a really big, important. We're gonna have this new team. We're gonna get all these guys, and let's get this writer who has absolutely no experience whatsoever, and then we'll get this Mark Bagley guy he's got pretty good stuff, but he's got no experience, and we'll get them to do this issue. But this is terrible, man, and it's cliche. And Terrax would destroy these guys. And so they come up with this cute little way of lifting them off the ground and exploding. And why did it just happened that Nemorita was among these college students watching when Terax came out. And I was like, what? Like, she just was there? How coincidental. How nice for that. And the whole thing with Marvel Boy. Hey, we don't have the facilities to train you. If the Avengers don't have the facilities to train somebody, who the hell does? Nobody, right? Like, this guy took way too many liberties with the Avengers, with these characters, trying to rush everything together into this big gathering story. Terax, the main villain, he was totally watered down. It was terrible. The characters are whiny. I mean, I know they're supposed to be teenagers. I have a teenager, and she's pretty whiny some days. But,
I do too.
yeah. So it's like, oh man. But yeah, I wasn't too happy, and I'm not happy with the big, like at the end where the Avengers are like, "Oh, you beat Terax? Good job, beat it!" Right? Like Captain America knows who Terax is. He's going to be coming in there going, "Holy shit, you guys beat Terax! Like you guys are way more powerful than I gave you credit for." And then the whole everybody put your hands clichély in the center and we'll join together to be the new warriors. Lacks. That just lacks, man. Story 1. And that's like, because I have to give it a 1. Can I give it a 0?
I think zeros are allowed. If you
Give it a 0.
Like I would give it a 1, except that it's totally, you just ripped off Teen Titans #1 totally from fucking beginning to end. And the whole 0.
0. Well,
Ladies and gentlemen, you have seen a comics graders notes first. We've seen our first
Yep.
0.
I will say, Shakespeare it ain't, but
True.
we got a little fun team up on our hands here. But yeah, the mortal sin is they just rush everything too much. So touche there. But I was looking for my first appearance of Speedball to validate my Speedball love, but I couldn't find it.
I got it. I'll get it.
Yeah, take care of me on that, Matarog. You got to represent for Speedball. So there you have it. Chatomania.
You're lucky you guys can cut me off because, man, I could have a 15-minute rant about how much I dislike this whole first issue story.
There you have it. He says, so I would say he thought it was worse than Mickey Mouse Club. He said it was mouse shit. In your basement. 0.
I've read a lot of those like Mickey Mouse Dell comics. They're pretty entertaining, better than this one.
Oh, it was bad.
Good job there, David.
I had to pinch my freaking nads together to get it done, but it's there.
Yeah,
All right,
no
so
problem.
I think it's time for some chat grades, don't you guys think?
Yeah, man. Let's see what
agree
you
with
guys
that,
have to say about the new Warriors. What does the storyline sound like to you? Let's see if Mr. Miracle left an impression on the chat. And it looks like they maybe did because I'm seeing a 0.5 coming through. So I'm thinking
He would
that,
leave an impression in a minefield.
yeah.
Oh man,
That's a good one.
Dave has quite the reputation.
Hey, I'm just gonna call it like I see it. I mean, come on, man, you can't read that story and be like, "Wow, that was entertaining." You read that story and be like, "Oh, this guy has tried to squish 10 issues into one issue, and they made it weird." Like, I don't know. I don't understand the mentality when they take brand new writers and put them into an important issue, right? Like, give this guy a few, issues of Web of Spider-Man or, I don't know what, like something that's not so important. You don't want to start him out on #1 because he dropped the ball. I mean, this was never a hugely popular team, and I can only imagine that it's because of these first issues of the New Warriors that happened.
I feel you. I suppose, I feel like when it comes to certain like hokiness and maybe lack of depth, I mean, when you go through a lot of the comics of like, there's a lot of old school 60s and 70s comics where, I feel like they're pretty revered, but the stories are pretty hokey. I kind of feel like it's part of the medium sometimes.
It is part of the medium sometimes, but you got to think those 70s stories, they're hokey, but they're original. Right? Like, this is a full-on lift from Teen Titans #1.
Dave, need I to remind you they're the heroes of the '90s, sir?
I'm reminded of that line from The Adventures of Ford Fairlane. Reading this book is like masturbating with a cheese grater. Slightly amusing, but mostly painful.
You gotta remind you that the book opens up with Night Thrasher saying, "Fool, I'm gonna throw you off this roof."
That
And
starts
that's cool.
great, man.
I'm like, okay, the first page, I'm into it. Next page, oh, I'm out.
All right, let's get chat grades.
All right. Found it.
Ooh, there it is. Ta-da, Speedball. I will say, of all the people that they rushed through them joining the team, Speedball's the most egregious. Like, no one even asked him. He's out shopping for a TV with his mom, and he sees New Warriors on the TV, and he goes, "Oh shit, Mom, I gotta go. I'm gonna join this superhero team." It's like, what?
Yeah, that was again. It is very rushed. But I remember they did already appear in Thor, and then they didn't even know they were going to form a team at that point. Then they came up with this because they thought it was a little popular. But yeah, it was a bit rushed, but I didn't think it was that bad. But anyway.
I mean, look what was going on back then. They could release anything. So they just had to put a book out there. It's going to sell, 200,000 friggin' units.
I mean, they had Ren and Stimpy
why
for
not?
God's sakes, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I had fun reading it. All right, so
ready.
I'm ready.
All right, we got Lord Vasco with a 1. Biggie Shaq with a 1. Unruly Simeon with a 1.5. Comic Collector with a 3. Now, Biggie Shaq, you can't vote twice, buddy. You got a 1 and a 0.5. Come on, man.
Yeah, you got to hold that 0.5. You let Miracle grease you, bro.
Yeah, Gray Man with 3.
If you read it, people, get your grades in.
I think that's it.
Okay.
Did I miss anybody?
I don't think so. What did Don give it? Because I know he actually read it before we jumped on.
Gave it a 3.
Gave it a 3? All right.
Yeah.
We got an overall chat grade of a dose. 2.
2. Okay. So definitely not up for a Nobel Prize.
It's definitely a deuce. Yep.
Little worse than average there. I guess I can live with that. I mean, again, sometimes we read this with rose-colored glasses as we have an attachment to the characters like Night Thrasher and Nova.
Yeah,
and so forth.
And keep in mind, I think if we just every time picked like masterpieces every time, I feel like it wouldn't necessarily be that fun. Like I do want to criticize shit. I think it's kind of fun to do that. So a lot of times when we put these books, I'm like, it'd been years since I read it. I was like, oh, I used to like New Warriors. Let's cook in there. It'd be fun to revisit it. So I feel it.
We've had a couple of calls from Miracle to have his own review channel just for doing stuff like this.
Yeah, I agree. I think you should.
So there's your ideas right there, man.
Yeah, man. It should be called, So You Thought Canadians Were Nice, Huh?
Yeah.
The Mr. Miracle Review Show. Okay. So Canadian next up, man, let me segue us into the next topic, which is that artwork. Mark Bagley. You guys probably know him from Spider-Man. Would you guys say that that's his like most famous run? Is that his high watermark, Bagley, you think?
Oh yeah. I mean, his Venom stuff was that's the benchmark anyway. So I think that's what everyone remembers, that and the Carnage stuff. So
yeah. He was drawing during that critical, that Spider-Mania era, if you will.
He's still one of the few guys that gets Venom right, if you ask me, proportionally and all that. So
no doubt. So we're going to get into his art, some of his early art. We're going to start off with Gino, and we're going to see what he thinks about this artwork.
Okay, what do I think about the interior art? Well, the interior art fares a lot like the cover itself. It's basically almost like a cover swipe inside. Everything looks about the same what you see on the cover, other than some color and shading differences, of course. There's some pretty cool stuff in here. There's some good action scenes. Panel layout's pretty good. There's some pretty egregious problems with the inking, but I don't think it's the inker. I think it was the printing that did it. I'm sure some of my counterparts here will also go on there. Especially in the first half of the book, it's just awful. It's like the inks are like, a couple of millimeters outside of the lines, like constantly. So you can't see borders on anybody. So I'm not sure what that's all about, but I don't think that's the artist doing that. I think it's just the printing process. So it's just, I don't know, it's pretty good. Nothing here really stands out. But once again, it's the first panel. I mean, that's it. You got freaking Night Thrasher in the background. There's a moon back there. It just looks great, Richard Rider doesn't look too disheveled there. He looks a lot more disheveled the next page. You see him, he's all unshaven and looks destitute. But I love it where it's got his eyes activating again when his powers kicks in. That's just so great. And then it's got him kind of just roaring up there again. But I don't know. It just nothing else really in the book really jumped out to me too much as far as art goes. I did like the way he drew Speedball in a couple of these shots. Like he's like such a spastic character, and like the way his joints and all that bend, it just kind of fits real well with him. He doesn't do it with the other characters, so you can tell he just did that just intentionally on Speedball. So I think that's a pretty nice touch. Terax is unfortunately not drawn real well. He's not distinct at all. Maybe that's on purpose once again because he's kind of a amalgamation of like Earth and things and cosmic energy. But there's another really cool picture here. Night Thrasher's visor with Terax in the background. I really like that a lot too. I wish it was done a little brighter in the printing process. But so yeah, this is Bagley, just solid. Bags. I've never seen anything bad he's done. So like I said, it's just middle of the road. Nothing too amazing, but throughout, I don't have any complaints about the book. So I guess that's its highest mark there. So I'm going to go ahead and run with a 3 on this, just like I gave the cover. I don't know that this team can be drawn much better. That's the other thing too, because some of the costumes are a little bit whack and some of the color schemes are a little bit odd too. So I think that doesn't really, other than Night Thrasher, most of the other people don't look too cool on this team, to be all honest with you. So I think he did basically the best job he could with this team. So yeah, just going to give it a 3. A little bit above average, but nothing too worthy of the Smithsonian.
Dang, he's not submitting it to the Smithsonian. You heard it here first, folks. Let's see. Artwork inside this book. I mean, I do got some gripes, and I got some things that I like. The inking, you're right. The inking and the coloring. Whatever that process was, whether it's the inker's fault or the printing press or whatever it is, but something tells me that if I was able to look at this book and just look at Bagley's pencils before he submitted it to whatever jabronis inked this thing, it probably would have looked a lot better, because I can tell that the original pencils aren't bad from Bagley, but then stuff just gets muddled. Like, that is not a very appealing page to me. The colors don't pop. It's a little muddy. So I will say there's moments that don't really do it for your boy. And I guess one thing as far as Bagley goes, and I don't know if this is necessarily because of his art or if it's because of the inking and stuff, is he shines when he has room to work. Like, the best looking pages in this book are like the full page stuff. The stuff at the end of the book looks really clean. Look how nice that panel looks with the team linking up. Nice and clean. That's some good inking right there. If the whole book somehow managed to do that, they'd be good. Like, that page ain't bad. But then when you get to like some of this other stuff, I did like, actually, one thing that was cool was Terax, with not so much the way that Terax was drawn, because I wasn't too big on that, but his dialogue boxes. I like the red outline they gave his dialogue. I thought that looked pretty cool. Kind of picture like a real booming voice coming out of dude. So that was nice. But stuff kind of muddied up. I wasn't a big fan of seeing Night Thrasher with his mask up the whole, like almost the whole issue. I think they just wanted you to see that he was a black guy and be like, see how inclusive we are? Make sure you show that face. But he looks cool with the mask on. Oh, and another gripe of mine is I wish they looked younger, actually. Like, I feel like the whole team looks like grown-up heroes. I wish they drew them younger. Like this panel, for example, when they show Night Thrasher talk, I mean, that looks like a grizzled veteran dude, you know, to me. And I wish because they behave fairly young, but they don't look that young. And I thought it would have been better if they did. So, let me just see if there's any last thing. I put my little note sheet that I didn't mention. Yeah, not really. Yeah, so that's my thoughts on it. I gave it just a down the middle, a 2.5.
2.5 from Macho Head.
Ooh, yeah.
That was great analysis, though, buddy. Great analysis.
Oh, thanks.
I didn't even think about the youthfulness of the face, but now that I look at it, you have a very good point.
Right? It's like, I've seen things, man. It looks old.
I mean, look at close to the end, page 30, Speedball. Look at him in the center panel there. Look how he does not look like 15 or 16 years old there.
Yeah, he looks like almost 30.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they should have young them up. So, what do you think, Dave? What do you think of the artwork on this thing? And your mic's off, by the way, bud. Or muted, rather.
Muted, yeah. There you go.
That was weird. How did that happen? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Go for it.
Okay, so again, like my big complaint is the same complaint you guys had, is it's way over inked. Like everything, like there's this panel here where they're in a dark room looking at a computer screen. That's the kind of panel I want to see, a lot of inks versus light colors. But every panel looks like that. It looks like everybody's even out in the daylight, right? Like, I don't mind Terax. I didn't mind the way he looks in here. I like some of these like really big panels where he's coming alive and stuff like that. You can really start to see Mark Bagley style kind of starting out, right? Like, he does get much, much better in the coming years than what I'm seeing here, but definitely, this is where he's starting out for sure. And you can really see like some of the really good panels that he will eventually start to employ more often. Like the panel that Genome pointed out where Terax is like reflected in Night Thrasher's goggles. Like, that's a really cool shot. Like, I like stuff like that, right? And so you can see Bagley's coming through there. But yeah, the inks, Al Williamson, I think the guy, yeah, Al Williamson, terrible. It went way over. And yeah, I know the 90s printing process wasn't the best. So yes, they're going to go outside of the line sometimes. There's like single block colors for the coloring. They don't do a lot of gradient shading. Like, if you look at a modern comic now, they have like, much, much better quality printing. But still, not every 90s comic looks like this, right? So we know that it's been completely over inked. Like, it's way too black in lots and lots of places. And there are some, like I said, there are some good shots, but there's some weird shots too. Like, even this first one with Night Thrasher, if you look at the slope of the roof where it is, and then the slope of where his feet are, they don't match up and stuff like that. I mean, I'm being overly critical maybe. There's shots here where the truck's in the background just before Terax shows up, and they kind of look curved, like they're in a fisheye lens or something. And I was like, what's the matter? Did fucking Marvel not give you guys rulers when you do your job, or what? Like, you got a straight line here. You don't have to freehand the side of a truck, right? Like, but there's lots of good stuff in here. Like, there's lots of really good panels. You can tell that Mark Bagley was going to be one of those guys that really, made a name for himself with Marvel Comics eventually. But this was just him starting out. So I'm going to cut Mark a little bit of slack, knowing, where he was in his career at that point. And I'll give it the middle of the road. And I'm just going to give it, 2.5 for the interior artwork.
2.5 for old early Bagley work. Fair enough. We all seem to be in agreement on the ink job this thing got. What do you think, Matarog? Did that aspect hit you as well as you went through this book?
Yeah. If you've noticed in my analysis, I'm very critical of inkers. And that's because some of inkers are frustrated pencilers. And what they'll do is that they will try to interpose their will onto the penciler's original concepts. And that's something that bugs me to death. Because you're supposed to be accentuating what the penciler is putting on there and making it a little sharper, making it a little more defined, making it a little cleaner. But this inker here does all the opposite. Okay, he makes things muddled. He makes things either way too dark or way too almost out of focus. That he puts so much of a layer on things, and it really ruins this to a great degree. And I don't think Bagley is perfect here. I think, as Dave said, I think he gets a lot better as the years go by. He's got a few poses that are a little odd, and his bigger panels are nice. You know, like this one here with Terax. It's not great, but you know, I like the introduction. I like the dynamic of the flames and of the word, you know, the words there that, you know, I think Kenny stated there. Very nice. The bigger panels and the static panels are actually well done. But then you have like these odd layouts here, like this, you know, almost column over here to the left here, right? And you know, and then it's like faceless Namorita there. I mean, there's like no detail whatsoever there. It's just sort of you're just throwing some brown in there and a little bit of a burst there, and that's it. You know, that's a little bit too lazy for me. I do like some of the effects, like here when Speedball was contained in a telekinetic field by Marvel Boy, and then he, you know, obviously did an opening to create this collision on Terax. That was well done, well colored, but most of the color. Another thing is the colorist kind of was off in a lot of panels. There was one by the truck here. Let me see if I can find it, where it's just lazy. It's just that, you know, they didn't pay attention to detail and they overbled the colors, and that really just detracted from the pencils. Bagley, I think he did good on the phases here. They all look different. They all have different expressions, right? Really well done. But man, some of the layouts, I'm not a fan. The inking that would be a -10 for me. This is just horrible inking. The coloring, lackluster. I give Bagley a much better grade than the rest of the art, but as it is, I can't give this anything but a 2, guys.
Boom. The ink stinks. You heard it here first from Metaron. And it totally.
All right.
And that was.
There's one thing I didn't mention here.
Yeah.
I just want to see if anyone else had caught this. This is actually a crossover book. Believe it or not, there's actually a DC reference in this book. I actually covered this in the video I did about this book a couple months ago, and I found it then. If you look on, what page is it? It's page 3, middle panel here. Notice the T-shirt this guy over here is wearing. My camera's not going to focus on it, but
yeah, it's out of focus.
But if you want to open up and take a look, but I'll save some time. It's a damn Batman logo that's on his shirt. So
right there, the guy in the yellow shirt.
Bang.
Is that the one you're talking about?
Yep.
Yeah. I forgot to talk about that. You're right.
Yeah.
Again, cool. Night Thrasher.
Yeah.
Batman. Yeah. They have some, you know.
So it's a low-key giveaway of what he's supposed to be.
You know, they have a lot of similarities. Let's just put it that way.
A lot. I mean, the New Warriors and the Teen Titans are totally rip off, man.
One thing I wanted to give props to, you know what they did good? It's like, just funny. Is like the sound effect words. What do you call those? Onomatopoeia? So
onomatopoeia.
Shivac. I don't think I've ever seen Shivac before during the blast. There's a bunch of good ones in there. For like these odd sound effect sounds. But there you have it. That was the interior art grade. Let's hit the chat for their grade. I know Comic Collector had to go, and he left a 2.5 behind for us to work with. So I know that's the first grade that I got in my queue.
Oh, Biggie says he gives it a 3. He likes it.
Yeah,
Wow, I'm kind of surprised about that. Let's see. Nope.
2.5 from the Simian.
2.5 from the Simian. Yep. Conquistador says the ink stinks. Yeah, that's true. It does. I think we all agree on that one.
Yeah, man.
It is atrocious, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, between ink and printing, man, that really conspired to bring
yeah.
this book down. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, the ink printing and the coloring just, they really just dropped the ball here.
The coloring is so subpar too. Like I know the printing process just makes they couldn't do a lot of gradient shading or whatever with the 90s printing process, but still it's like guys are like a lot of times the characters are getting lost in their colors, like they're just disappearing in the background and stuff. Like
too much red too. There's way too many red
sometimes
accents in this thing.
You see this foreground shot and it's just a yellow or a blue and there's no detail in it. I mean, there doesn't be any rhyme or reason for it. Why is it, you know, yellow in one and blue in another in the same atmosphere? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, no.
Simeon shouted out a thwathum in there in the book, and I'll see your thwathum, and I'll raise you a tum troom. That's right, we get a tum troom.
Oh, really, I was going with a big poom here. I like that one myself. There we go.
Poom.
There's another one that's palm.
And there's the yarg. Yarg!
Funny.
Yarg!
That was a
Terrax when he was hit by the kinetic bubbles.
That was a good point about Kenny, you made about Terex's speech bubbles. I really do like those. I hadn't really noticed that before. Yeah, but it really makes them pop. I do like that style of a speech bubble.
Yeah, those are cool.
Gives them a sense of power.
And my
Mastodon comes in with a 3, Kenny.
yes. Okay. And my favorite observation of that whole thing was Metarog's description of inkers as frustrated pencilers that like, they try to leave their mark. You're right. I've seen that a lot. It's like, just know your role, man.
So you trace?
Yeah, right.
You trace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that gives us a chat grade of 2.75, which in my book is a 3. So,
3.
into your book, it's a 3.
You guys are a little more forgiving than I am in there.
So far, the chat is lining up almost perfectly me, only off by 0.5. So,
wow.
Just saying.
Hey, these guys are pros in the chat, man. Forget it.
Yeah. Well, our last top, category before overall is the concept. The concept of this book. So I think it's my turn to go first. Okay. So the character, as far as concept goes, they introduced one new character here, Night Thrasher. Even though he was introduced a couple of, a little sooner before, like in Thor, but still, these characters were around, I think, longer than Thrasher. Thrasher got made for New Warriors, if I understand right. Yeah. And I remember the story I heard about it because I think Tom DeFalco created him.
Yep.
And the way he created him was he was doing some research and went to a magazine newsstand rack and was like, hey, what sells with young kids? Because they were trying to make a product that would sell to young kids in the 90s. And the guy's like, oh, well, these Thrasher magazines sell, skateboard magazines. And he was like going through the Thrasher magazines, and that's the birth of Night Thrasher. That's why he's a skateboarder, because of DeFalco's field research. So anyway, I'm glad they introduced that character. I'm a fan of the dude. I like the team. You know what I'm saying? I dig him. I was never a big Marvel Boy guy, though, I will say. I always wish they kind of like ixnayed Marvel Boy. But yeah, I was always dug Namorita, Firestar, Nova. I agree. He ain't Kid Nova. It's Richard Rider, Nova, and Speedball. So it's a team book, in the same vein of your Teen Titans, your New Mutants. But I will say, as far as Teen Titans go, at least it ain't a bunch of sidekicks that got together and made a team, because that's all Teen Titans is a bunch of sidekicks that got together. At least these are all young heroes that, maybe they're not ready for the big leagues yet, so they get together and make their own little squad, the New Warriors. So I'm not mad at that. Um, I guess they kind of like, because New Mutants are kind of like X-Men Junior. I guess these guys are like Avengers Junior. It seems like they're trying to make that point in this book, but I've never really looked at the New Warriors as Avengers Junior. But it is what it is. I like team. I don't go to my New Warriors reads for life-changing stories. I think they're a fun little '90s team. They're heroes for the '90s, as you know. And that honestly, that little tag kind of sums it up. It's like, hey, here's a crew of young heroes for the '90s. They wanted to introduce a new little team book, and I don't know. I feel like there's nothing too deep to sink my teeth into on the concept. We know what it is. I'd say 3. It's a 3. Introduced a new team. They didn't really I feel like they're not a staple of. They didn't go on to become like a staple of comic teams. Like I don't think they're really bouncing around in any kind of continuity now. The New Warriors, but they did run for a while. So they didn't make a super enduring property as far as mainstream goes, but in your boy Comic Head's heart, they made some enduring characters. Okay, and I give it a 3.
Nice.
Mr. Miracle, what do you say about the concept of the New Warriors? Number 1.
Well, like I've been saying, this is just a straight up rip off of lots of other comics. It's a gathering issue. Night Thrasher, who's a rip off of Batman, is gathering up all of his weirdo friends to put it together in a team, and then they're like, oh, who's like really weird kind of crazy guys that we could put together? Nobody's using this character and nobody's using that character, and we'll just put them all in a team. I hated the concept. It's just too typical, right? And then using the people that they use. Marvel Boy is originally a Golden Age hero. Firestar, she started on a Saturday morning cartoon. Namorita, I'm not sure if she was from the original Submariner run in the 40s.
She wasn't from the Bronze Age run.
She is from the Bronze Age?
Yeah.
Okay. Kid Nova, who's actually Nova, Richard Rider, right? He's been around since 1974. Speedball, he shows up in the Spider-Man Annual. Terrible character. Hate Speedball. Hate him so much. Well, they tried to make him Spider-Man, right? Like they tried to make him that quippy Peter Parker Spider-Man kid, and it just didn't land. You know what I mean? It was just not. And to a certain extent, they did that with Nova too. Like trying to make him a Spider-Man again and get that hit. But again, he just didn't quite land with audiences in that same way that Peter Parker did, right? And Spider-Man does. So, all of these characters, they're either coming from like television shows or they're just a straight up rip off of other characters. The whole concept is a straight up rip off of several other different stuff. I mean, especially like I just kept reading this going, yeah, the whole idea, they just read Teen Titans #1 and was like, oh, well, we'll do this, but we'll just we'll put a skateboard guy in there because that's cool, right? Or we'll put Firestar in there because all those guys will remember her from Saturday morning cartoons. And, so it's a money grab issue. It's trying to, throw these people together to make a bunch of sales for something that, is subpar. Concept wise, just because it's such a ripoff, I'm just going to give it a 1.5. I mean, at least they don't just only have mutants or anything. They mix it up quite a bit. But yeah, no, I wasn't happy with the concept either.
Wasn't digging the concept. We got that from Miracle. Now, Mr. Metarog, would you say that what Dave just said was nothing but the truth from this great New Warriors cover, number 25? Or would you say that was not the truth and have a different spin of your own? What do you say?
Well, I think it's the truth, but I don't necessarily agree with the conclusion. Are the characters some groundbreaking kind of generational heroes? No, absolutely not. But let's look at the situation. When we look at the concept, you got to look at the situation, right? In 1990, Marvel, their characters had been around, you know, the original Silver Age characters for 30 years, and not a whole lot of new things. They had, you know, when they came in with the monsters and the Bronze Age, you know, and then umpteen mutant teams and mutants, which just kept replicating over and over throughout from the Bronze Age all the way through the Copper Age. And, you know, there wasn't a lot of freshness. So around 1990, they started to try to change things up. Ghost Rider was reimagined with a little more updated concept. You had Guardians of the Galaxy come back in and again tried to be more updated, try to be more 90s heroes. You had Deathlock again being reimagined. You had Marvel trying to see if they can sort of switch the generational direction of their comics toward a younger audience. And for that, I give them some points. Yes, it's derivative of Teen Titans. They're teens. Their powers are not necessarily original. They're sort of, you know, in the penumbra of their heroes. But again, they took the properties that they had and they put them into a Thor comic, and it became kind of popular. So what did Marvel say? Hey, yeah, we can make some money with this team. Let's give them their own comic. Let's try to appeal to a younger audience. Let's try to get another dynamic into the Marvel age, other than just the old heroes that we are, you know, kind of trying to change the storylines. So I give them credit for that. Okay, the team is not necessarily the most cohesive. Obviously, Night Thrasher is a very flawed, almost anti-hero. And yeah, I mean, everything is a little bit too convenient in as far as them coming together. But guys, this is comics, you know, this none of this is going to make any sense if you dig down that deep, right? And the characters they had will appeal to a lot of the audience that they're trying to get to at that time. Okay, remember, us old fogies are getting now, you know, out of comics, and we're getting another generation coming in. So I give them credit for trying to target that generation. Again, is it the most high-level concept? No, but I think considering what was out at the time, and that Marvel at least is experimenting, at least is trying to change, to move the needle somewhere with a younger generation, I give them credit for that. So I give this concept a 3.
Concept gets a 3 from Metarog, and we also get a first appearance of the word penumbra on Grader's notes. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Genome, what do you say about this concept, man? I think great points, by the way, Metarog.
Thank you.
What do you say, Gino?
Well, taking my obvious bias aside, because being a child of the 90s, I am, this book screams 2 words to me: focus group. I think a bunch of the suits at Marvel got together. It's like, okay, we need to make a real generalized comic book. We need to make something that, you know, the 7 to 11-year-olds can follow, and we need something for the younger teens. And I think they didn't give 2 craps about the older readers at this point. Because if you look at the character breakdown, it's kind of interesting. So, okay, so for the little kids, you got Speedball and somewhat Marvel Boy and Firestar, because they're both very unsure of themselves. They're very timid. You know, they're just kind of learning and finding their way. For the more younger teens and all that, you got the hot spark of Nova and Namorita kind of, you know, bouncing off each other, and their little unrequited love thing. It kind of comes around later. And then maybe for the one gleaning for the older reader would be Night Thrasher. He has a little more of a mature outlook, and it's something kind of interesting, and they do not touch on it in this first issue when they really need to. Is Night Thrasher is a very unstable person. He is, if you read the very first appearance of him in the first Thor, or the Thor issues he's in, when he's fighting the Juggernaut, he loses it. He completely losing it, and Juggernaut's getting ready to kill him. But yeah, so he can just snap at any given time. So it makes it kind of an interesting idea for someone like that to be leading the team. He's cool and calculating until he gets angry. He's like the inverted Batman, he stops thinking and starts attacking. So, and he's the only one without any superpowers. So that's not the recipe for success a lot of times for the human characters in a comic book. But the concept is just Marvel in the Copper Age. Just gather stuff together, throw it into a book, and throw it against the wall and see what sticks. Back then, most everything did, but this is when they were doing the all new. They were adding members to the Avengers. They were adding like Medrog was saying, new teams. Guardians of the Galaxy. X Factor's not a new team, but they just repackaged the mutants and threw them out there in their own series. We'll take new mutants and we'll make them X Force and ad nauseum. And new Warriors is another version of that. It's like we got some characters sitting around not doing anything. Everything we put out there is going to sell, a lot of copies. So we'll just put another book together. We got a guy we want to kind of work up to maybe bigger things. So we'll put him on this book for a while in Bagley. And that's what it was. It's just another number one. It's just another relaunch. I do like the fact that the characters are kind of disparate, while like Namorita is kind of strong and Nova's kind of strong. There's no like dedicated strong person on the team. There's no Thing, there's no Hulk, there's no Thor. That's kind of cool. There's only one Elemental in Firestar. Speedball could have been the most interesting character on this team by far because his power is kind of cool. It's like he's like surrounded by another dimension. I don't know. It's just interesting. Of course, then they turned him into what they turned him into, and his character design's awful. But so I mean, it had promise. It's just, but I don't think big wheels weren't turning up in the heads of the creators of this. I think they were just seeing dollar signs. And I think a couple of people got together and said, we need to appeal to a younger audience and let's get a team together and make it for them. And we'll call it Team for the 90s. So yeah, I'm going to have to give it a little bit lower marks for concept. It's just going to be 2.5, middle of the road. I mean, could go lower, but at the same time, I mean, I kind of like them. If they were written better, I think it'd be pretty cool. But just 2.5, real middle of the road. Nothing too special on the concept on this one.
2.5. The wheel in the sky did not keep on turning on this journey into the 90s. And with 2.5, Gino?
Yeah.
Yes.
2.5, right down the middle from old Genome. Yeah, so we've laid out the concept. I think. Excuse me one sec while the chat pops in their numbers. I'm gonna be back in 2 secs. And
all right, we'll try to keep you entertained in the interim. So.
That's light work for you guys. I'll be right back.
It's light work for us guys.
Yeah, I was trying to be really careful not to let nostalgia kind of cloud my vision here because, I have a lot of nostalgia for this book. I mean, this is at the heyday of my collecting time. And, but reading it now compared to reading it then I got to be honest of where it is now, not how I thought of it at that time. So I know I liked the series quite a bit when I was younger. But I don't know if I liked it that much because of the content. I think I liked it just because it was new and I thought the team was kind of interesting. But looking back now, I definitely had to be a little more honest with my scoring. So.
Oh, we change as the years go by too. We're talking 1990. We're talking what's this? Almost 30 years now.
Yeah.
As to me, when I say that in my head, I'm like, no, Roger, you're wrong. But it is, and we've evolved, we've changed, we've moved on to much other hobbies and other levels of comicdom, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah. We're going to see it a little different. I thought it was really good when I first saw it. And now I'm like, I see a lot of warts. So
yeah. And granted, stuff wasn't as serious back then for the most part. You had it was a lot more lighthearted at that time. So
yeah.
Yeah, this is the first time I read this book. So I came at it with adult eyes. And I was like, why is everybody so nostalgic about this?
Yeah, I started feeling silly that I didn't bust out because I saw Gino with his in the background. I said,
yeah,
how are we having a New Warriors chat? And I don't have my first New Warriors slab.
Love that book. I want that one slab so bad. That's so sweet right there.
Yeah.
By the way, this is
a great
one of those.
New Warriors. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Let me click on the screen for you.
But
can you show one more time?
Oh yeah, that's technically the very first appearance of the New Warriors.
That's like the
It's
whole
actually
180
411.
of the New Warriors.
Yep. So,
Right.
but
It's a great cover too.
yeah, this thing is worth checking out just because the fight is so awesome. I love this two-parter here because
Yeah.
Juggernaut just whips up on Thor. I love seeing that. So
What do they just show up like right on the last page or something?
yeah, very last
Yeah,
page.
yeah.
They just kind of kick in, and it's like it looks like a cover from a comic book because they're all doing their action pose or whatever. It's kind
Yeah.
of hilarious.
Yeah, this was part of the Acts of Vengeance, where essentially they, I think it was, who was it, Doctor Doom and Loki or somebody
Loki,
said, hey, you
yeah.
know, we're going to send other villains that they're not used to fighting and see if you guys can defeat them, and it almost worked.
It was a good storyline. Acts of Vengeance actually it was
Yeah,
pretty cool
almost
because
worked.
I like Loki as a
It
character
made
a lot back
sense.
then.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can show you the page real quick. I'm going to take a chance with my copy here. Let's see.
And
Let's see. Yes, Thor getting knocked the hell out. Hold on. There they are. All right. Here it comes. Hopefully I can focus in. But this is the very first appearance of the New Warriors right there.
Ta-da!
New Warriors assemble.
So this is hilarious little panel there. But
Yeah. And now that I look at it, I realize, man, the New Warriors really like to smash through cover paper.
they
Yeah.
did, didn't they?
Like, that's their MO.
Yep.
Okay. I think we got, a couple grades to add up here before we wind into our just overall thoughts and punch out.
We got a 3 and a 3.75. Are you seeing anything else? I think everybody's sleepy tonight.
But we did get started kind of late.
Yeah, we did.
I'm always very forgiving of the chat. Yeah, so it's like a 3. Didn't quite make 3.5. So let's wrap up on our on just some overall thoughts. The boy who had 7 in the house.
Hey, Matt.
Miracle. What do you
Miracle.
think?
Overall,
Yeah, overall, what do you think of this thing?
I went like you guys can kind of guess. I wasn't too happy with it overall. Right, the cover had some serious issues. There's lots of rip off in here. Like it's just way too much ripping off of like Batman and Teen Titans, and even like here on the cover, that Nova illustration is exactly from the cover of his own first book. Speedball sucks. Firestar, the Saturday morning cartoon character. Night Thrasher's, a watered down Batman. The story was rushed. It's just a gathering story, and even the parts that weren't rushed seemed ill-conceived. I don't like the way that the Avengers were portrayed. I don't like the way the team is very cliche. I think Terax did all the best that he could. Only redeeming value I have in here is Mark Bagley, but then his illustrations are ruined by poor inking. So overall, I gave it a 1.5. That's all I can give it. I'm being generous. I'm being nice. I know you guys like this book, right? So I don't want to hurt your feelings. I don't want to get over
I like Aliens vs. Predator. You didn't spare my feelings.
Yeah, dude.
So
You'll never hurt my feelings on this stuff.
yeah,
It's not personal here, right? It's just the comics.
Yeah, it's all good, man. And
I can hear Kenny. He's got his tissues next to him. He's
All
like, oh, Miracle's so mean to my books.
in my book, I don't care. Yeah,
Your pick,
without the nostalgia, he has. That's how, and I know I can see that when you come to a book with zero nostalgia to it, you don't it doesn't pull anything of like, oh, it's cheesy, but you know what, that's kind of cool. You must have some kind of hokey books that you liked as a kid that you still appreciate, right? Is there anything like that?
Well, Transformers, G.I. Joe, that kind of stuff. They're pretty hokey.
I dare you to let's put G.I. Joe on the stands, brother. I want to crush your childhood now. Bedrock, what do you got, man?
Okay, let's make it quick, guys, because everybody's getting a little punchy here. Cover I thought was actually, it could have been better. I mean, the color scheme was a bit off, but I'm a sucker for these kind of, breaking the fourth walls, coming at you in your face. This is the first issue kind of cover. So I thought it was a little better than average. It could have been much better, but oh well. Interior art, man, Mark Bagley, good. Everything else, these guys, I don't know how they sleep at night. When they see their work in this issue, because it is atrocious, it is indulgent, and it is unprofessional. And it could have been a heck of a lot better if they would have done their job, and they did not. So the interior, bad too. Story, pretty basic. A gathering, you have to sort of suspend disbelief to a certain extent, that these disparate heroes come together and sort of just automatically trust and mend and meld together. Again, a very typical comic book gathering, but again, it had nuances. They did, I think, show teenagers in a fairly good light. And they had, there's potential as to, the whole reason behind the team, a more street level team, a more micro team versus the Avengers, who were shown to be more of a macro and not seeing what the small stuff is going on around them. A little bit off center, but I understand that was the, impulses to have them get together and make this team. So again, I give it a 3 for the story. Concept, again, we just rehashed it, 3. So overall, it's a 3. It's a bit better than average. Could have been a lot better if it wasn't a little too derivative, and it was a little too rushed. If they would have taken their time, perhaps had the characters come in maybe in issue 2 and 3, and have a more of a recruitment, it would have been a little better. But as is, I give it a 3.
There you have it. I love that Metarog was so disappointed in the art. He called it unprofessional. I love it.
Yeah, that's pretty harsh.
Yeah. Gino, what do you say, man? Overall,
if Dave calls me harsh, that's
right.
bad. That's bad. I've been naughty.
I don't know how you follow that up, man. Okay, well, let's see. I'll try. I hope you didn't poison the crowd against me. But this book it screams mediocrity at best and money grab at worst. I mean, look, I have so much nostalgia for this book. I can still see the comic store I went. I remember the place. I can't remember the name of the place, but I could take you there. It was on the corner of Goldenrod and University in Orlando. I can tell you exactly when it was.
I know where it is. Yep.
It was over there by the old Kmart in that plaza.
Yep.
I can just walk in that place and see this book on the shelf. And like I said, spending my grubby, 6 pence that I had in my pocket or whatever to buy books like this. But, I have to look at it modernized, and this book is just middle of the road in most things and poor in some. For both the cover and the interior art, I gave it a 3. Mark Bagley did a good job. He was severely let down by his supporting staff, unfortunately, and took what could have been an excellent looking book and turned it into kind of a muddy mess, but not bad. He's a good enough artist to, even with all those flaws, it stuck him out looking pretty decent compared to some other books. For the story, I gave it a 2. It's just a big fetch quest. It's I don't know, it's pretty lame. It's just too rushed. If it was like 10 more pages, it'd have been good. I think they could have just taken their time with it, and you wouldn't have to spend so much disbelief at this team just suddenly just gelling together and coming together to mutual benefit. I mean, I know the circumstances kind of put them together to fight this big threat, but it was just also contrived. I mean, I didn't like that part. I did like, and I know some others disagree with this, I did like how they make the Avengers look like jackasses. Because, I mean, you get to be at a certain level for a certain amount of time, you get this amount of hubris about you that may not go away because the cameras are on. In fact, that may exaggerate it some more. But so that was kind of cool, I thought. And I did like the way Night Thrasher was kind of clandestinely going after his teammates and almost like getting either blackmailing them or testing them some way to get them to join. Didn't make a lot of sense, but at least it was something a little bit different. And it kind of set him up to be, work in the shadows kind of guy. Also, no one else really mentioned his 2 trainers, Was it Cord and the ancient one? I can't remember what her name was, but
Tay or Ty?
Ty, yeah, I think that was what it was. So he has basically two elder advisors, Cord being the gruff tactician and Ty being the Confucian spouter of wisdom. But yeah, like I said, the story was just bad. I gave that a 2, and the concept was just Marvel's, shotgun technique. Just keep shooting stuff out there, and people will buy or they won't buy. They didn't care back then because they made so much money, so it really wasn't a chance for them or anything. It was just a chance to make more money and dilute the market even further. So, with all that being said, nostalgia glasses are off. I'm gonna have to go ahead and just give this a real middle of the road 2.5. If the inks had been a little better, I might have bumped that up to a 3. But the story was so bad and the concept was so bland that I just can't really go any higher than that. So yeah, 2.5 for me.
2.5. A bland sandwich from Gino.
Bland sandwich.
Yeah, I mean, just missed opportunity. 2 mortal sins in this book is you rush the story. I think that's why it seems as hokey as it does. They just crammed it in too quick. I think the overall idea of it's not like a bunch of heroes bumped into each other and said, "Hey, what's up? Want to be best friends? Awesome!" And let's go fight crime. I think it's kind of interesting that Night Thrasher is almost like plotting on these people to join his team as a means to an end, because he's the one non-superpowered dude on the team. So he's like, all right, I need to trick these superhero gimmick people onto my team to help out my unrelenting war against crime. I can't do it myself. I ain't got no powers. But I feel like if that was explored just a little differently and let it breathe a little more, it would have been a great collection story if it spanned over a couple or 3 issues. So that's sin number 1. And then, yeah, the art inside. It's just, it did just become kind of muddied mess. As I was coming back through it, I pointed out a little bit before, but you see the potential of what it could be. I think that panel is almost perfect. The characters look clean. There's no muddied up ink ruining things. Namorita looks feminine because the lines are nice and light. And just on the page right on the other side, you see the example of what makes this book look bad is Namorita heavily inked. There's Marvel Boy totally muddied up, and just, I don't know, you lose the grace of Bagley's pencils, that you see here once these inkers get their hands on it. So yeah, those are the 2 big things that kind of knocked this book down. But I think the characters themselves were cool that they picked. I was never a big fan of Marvel Boy. I kind of said that before. But I'm cool with the team. I always felt like they were a little different than, because New Mutants and stuff, they were like X-Men Junior. You had the Teen Titans. They were kind of like DC's sidekicks, more or less, assembled a team. But New Warriors, I kind of always felt like they were their own thing. I think it was Heroes in the chat who said, they're not junior anything. They were always their own squad. I guess for better or worse, whatever. They were their own original team up. I guess you could say a team up of C-list characters, but that's their charm. So, yeah, New Warriors. My overall is because I think there was a lot of potential there. So I'm going to go glass half full with it. It's just the execution that was bad. It's not the New Warriors' fault. It's, those other factors, the creators' factors. So 3 for overall on that. And I think we can spare the chat an overall chat grade. I think we got the gist of how the chat was feeling. And David Reach says, who was their main villain? That's a good question. Their main New Warriors villain?
They had a couple super teams that they took on that were other teams. I have the whole 75 issue run, but I haven't read it in a long time.
Oh wow, you do. Nice.
And they took on the Sphinx, I remember, in a big storyline where they had to go back in time. Let me see what else. They took on the Punisher, but that was more of a misunderstanding.
Nice.
They took on like the Mad Thinker. I haven't read these in a while, guys, but I think Cyanex was one of the teams that they took on, and that they battled various times back and forth. I remember.
The folding circle says heroes.
Circle, right.
You know, it's funny what you made me think of when you say Mad Thinker. I recently picked up that Avengers issue that George R.R. Martin, creator of Game of Thrones, has his fan letter in the back. And in that letter, he spends a good chunk of his letter critiquing what's going on in the comics, and he makes a point to say that the Mad Thinker is one of the lamest villains in all of comics, and get rid of him ASAP. He just made me think of that.
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
I don't disagree. Yeah, they had a lot of those kinds. Egghead and MODOK. Kind of the brainy guys, but they never did anything. They never got anywhere.
Right.
I mean, Leader was around OG.
Yep.
But who's that thing out there? Oh, well, there's always Mad Jim Jasters if you want a good Mad character. But other than that, and he barely got any screen time. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, let's wind this thing down. I guess we can take care of the housekeeping of announcing the next issue if you like, and then we can kind of just go through, say what we have going on, say goodbye to this awesome chat, and close the book on episode 7 of Graders Notes. So the book next up on the docket has been thrown up courtesy of Mr. Miracle.
My pick.
Books. The chat spoke. Well, the Graders Notes crew spoke. And which one did we fall on, Miracle?
Well, we're going back this time, way back to 1970. The first issue of Conan the Barbarian. Conan the Barbarian #1. So yeah, classic. This is a bit of an expensive book, but as you can see here, there's just a recent True Believers that came out within the last couple months, I think.
Yeah.
So anybody that is watching this on a repeat or whatever and wants to join us next week, you can go to an LCS and find this for $1 and join with us and have a copy. You could, if you want to spend the bucks, get yourself an original issue, an original 1970s issue, which is something I recommend anybody that comes across that book for a good price buy. But yeah, it should be fun. Take a look at a real classic Bronze Age from 1970. Conan the Barbarian.
Bam. One thing I like the idea of reviewing some classic comics that have kind of recently come out in True Believers, because that will kind of make it a really easily accessible thing for us to pick up, but especially the chat to pick up for $1. Might not be a bad thing to keep in mind, because they do a lot of iconic issues, which is kind of what we go for here, is somewhat notable issues. True Believers are good for that. So, boom, Conan. I got to pick myself up an issue. I'm going to be debating on whether if I find a good deal on the OG one, I might be tempted, because I do think he's probably right. It's probably not a bad book to own. Or I can find a True Believer. So, there you have it. Why don't we just wrap up, say what we have going on. Metarog, what's going on that wonderful channel of yours in the upcoming days? And what do you have going on?
Well, as usual, I have I do contest entries every weekend. You and Dave really hit it out of the park with the Royal Guard one, and I got one of those coming up too.
Ooh, great.
And I hope Genome does one, because I bet you his is going to be pretty good too. And then on Tuesdays, I usually do one of my obscure comics or stuff video. And then, of course, Thursday, I do my comic contest roundup for the community.
Bang. And one thing I'm slowly realizing is not only is Metarog's channel great for letting you know what contests are going on, but he puts out some of the best contest entries in the game. So that's a good thing to look out for too.
Well, it kind of goes hand in hand, right? If I'm out there telling you about it, I better know what I'm doing, right?
Yeah, it really does. You picked a good niche because you're good at contest entries. Always very thoughtful and good takes on them.
Thank you, buddy.
Gino, what's going on, man? You're gonna be strapping that Strapping a camera to that hog of yours or what? Well,
Oh yeah.
that came
Got
out.
my motovlog series has started up. I got most of my gear squared away finally after 2 weeks of fiddling with cameras and mics and adapter cables. But yep, and I'll be doing a filming trip. I'm riding it down to Florida probably next week, early Monday or something like that. So I'll be grabbing footage of that, so you can watch me cross over about 6 different state lines on the way down there, and get some footage of me and my buddies down there as we ride around the Orlando area. Got continuing my Friday the 13th dissection. I'm on part 5. I'm still editing it. I got really busy with stuff this week, so I haven't been able to finish it. But so that should be coming out tomorrow. Hopefully, I can get that pushed through because I know people have been asking me about it.
It's about time.
And yeah, I know, right? It takes so long. Well, I've been doing some live streaming of my editing sessions too, so you can kind of see what goes, how I get those things made. So
I don't want to spoil anything. I want to see the real show.
oh yeah, well, I don't blame you there. So, but yeah, so just stuff like that coming on. Just to let everyone know, I've also opened up an account on BitChute. So I am Genome Presents. This is Genome with an underscore presents over at BitChute. Because I disagree with a lot of stuff that YouTube does, but that's not here or there. But so I'm going on other platforms as well. So soon to be branching out to other places. Oh yeah, got to fight the power a little bit. So yep, that's pretty much it though. So just expect more comic, more motorcycle, more horror movie stuff coming up in the near future.
Man, keep your eye on Genome's eclectic YouTube channel.
Oh, and that's right. I forgot to tell you, I'll be on as a special guest, I guess you could call it, on Just Regan and his comics show this Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard.
Ooh, big time, big time.
Yeah, moving on up. D-Ron, look at this late blue wrench coming into the chat. D-Ron. Shame on you. I'm just kidding. Thanks for hopping in, bud. Mr. Miracle.
Yo.
What's cracking on that channel of yours?
So I missed my Wednesday normal video this week, but then what we were talking earlier before the show, and these guys guilted me into making sure I do it tomorrow. So I'll put up a video tomorrow. Another 5 undervalued, of course. I'm looking at a couple of ones I just got that are undervalued. It'll be a good show. It'll be
drop a video, or I'm gonna go home and rip up all your X-Men.
yeah, sure.
Call back. What?
We'll revisit that She-Hulk cover.
Yeah, for sure. Anyways, yeah, I'm gonna put that out. Other than that, kind of quiet on my channel. Yeah, more undervalued books coming up. That's what my channel specializes in, what I'm about. And yeah, I got a couple more shows of that, and already in the works. And yeah, I'll put it out tomorrow. I promise. Pinky swear.
All right, we're gonna hold him to that. And Mr. Miracle, that's what it is. He's the definitive YouTube channel for undervalued picks, but he's not picking those flash in the pan books, brother. Not these new comic book days, here today, gone tomorrow. The tried and true staples of the comic book collecting world. You got to go to your boy, Mr. Miracle, for that stuff. So,
amen.
On this channel here, this very channel, Comic Kid 84's channel, I know one thing. Tomorrow, I'm probably gonna link up with my buddy Biggie Shack, the charismatic and powerful Biggie Shack Comics. We're probably gonna do a round of, we are gonna do an episode of the Mega Power Hour. So stay tuned for that if that's your, if you're into that. And beyond that, I'm not sure. One thing I want to try to do is because I do read the new comic book day stuff, and I have been meaning to do some reviews on that, but we'll see. If you see crickets on that front on my channel in the next couple of weeks, you'll know that I failed in that mission. But I'm thinking about it. So no, thinking about it. All right, chat. What a great chat we had this time. A couple newer faces that, Conquistadorks hung out. Heroes to Icons was hanging out. Man, Mastodon was really, really into it. Dave Enrique.
Really, Simeone was into it.
Yeah, really solid chat today. So it really makes all the difference when you guys hang out with us and join on the fun, man. That's what this show is kind of about. We try to be real interactive. So till next time, we'll be reviewing Conan #1 from 1970, 2 weeks from today. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. Adios.